I'm here showing you a patch of KR bluestem. This is a grass from another continent that is quite invasive in North Texas and in other parts of the state. It was brought in for highway roadside stabilization as roads were constructed, and it has taken foothold and done very, very well here, often excluding other native vegetation as it spreads. From some angles, you're going to see this sort of dark or purplish tops on this. It is quite a pretty grass, but it is not a good actor in the landscape. It will compete favorably with other things and wipe them out. But as I move, hopefully you're going to be able to see that it looks different in different lights. It can look like it has dark tops, or it can look quite silvery in a changing angle of light. And then as I move even further out, those seed heads can look quite pale or even pink against the surrounding vegetation. Different angle of light as I turn there. The seed heads themselves are quite distinctive. They are multi-part plume, and if I take my fingers and rub up that, it feels slippery. It is not a hairy, rough grass. It's a very slippery seed head. So if you find this coming up, you probably want to eliminate it. It is going to compete pretty heavily with everything else, and it often wins. There are some native grasses that can outcompete it, and I just urge you to keep a lookout for this one and do away with it where you can. I'm at a chalky prairie at the Herd Museum, and here is King Ranch bluestem, which has taken over a section of this prairie. It's quite invasive, a really nasty plant that tends to form a solid mass wherever it is growing. It excludes native plants and makes it really difficult for them to grow there. They're pretty, but they shouldn't be here. And these are something we're going to be fighting for a long time to come. Probably never get rid of this from the North Texas landscape. Unfortunately, this KR bluestem is sort of everywhere you look these days, along roadsides. Here it is threatening some of the native species in the Benny Simpson Eco Park in Plano. While we're talking about invasive species, here's one that's not on your list. This little false ragweed, Parthenium hysterophorus. It is an imported plant that has really taken a foothold in North Texas. It's spreading rapidly. I only began seeing it about 10 years ago, maybe, a little bit less than that, and now you can find it just about anywhere you look. It has all kinds of awful habits. There's some fairly toxic chemicals in it, and it fights other plants with chemical warfare. So you want to remove every shred of this one as often as possible. Here's another example of that Parthenium hysterophorus or hysterophorus, and I wanted to show you that when you mow it off, it just learns to bloom short. As an example of how invasive this Parthenium hysterophorus, this false ragweed, is, have a look at this hillside as I zoom in. The entire thing, right where all the maintenance stops, is covered in it. Right. So this has spread very, very rapidly in this area. I'm here at Allen Wood Park in Allen, Texas, and this is pretty much the poster child for invasive species, this park. It has some of everything, so I was pretty sure I was going to find a chinaberry here. And sure enough, this is a chinaberry tree. You can see, I hope, if I can zoom in a little bit, that the leaves are not just singly compound, but doubly compound, and sometimes triply compound. So this is a very distinctive tree in the landscape because you can look for those large compound leaves. Here also in this park are bamboo, privet, lots of different kinds of privet, all imported invasive species. Down here I've got two kinds of privet starring together just under this chinaberry tree. All of these plants have berries that wash down waterways and plant themselves near creeks, so not surprising to find those three growing together, but sad. Here is just one leaf of that chinaberry. As you can see, it's compound. It is not only pinnate, but each one of those leaflets has leaflets. And so it's a very complex leaf and a very large leaf on this tree. What you're seeing here is a whole lot of little leaflets joined into one big leaf. This is a single chinaberry leaf. Again, showing you that it is not just compound, but compound. And so a fairly distinctive leaf. You're not going to mistake this for other trees in the landscape. You're going to find this mostly along waterways where the berries have washed, or in other places where birds have eaten the berries and dropped those seeds. And once there and established, it will spread very, very rapidly. I'm in a parking lot in Plano, and this is sort of an area near a utility farm. And it has some low, wet spaces which have been completely taken over by these very large giant reeds. The closest patch has already sort of lost its leaves for the year. But there are two other patches that I'm going to try to show you. There's one way back there. And there's another one over there. And those are probably 15 to 20 feet tall. They are just enormous. So this one in the front is actually this one looks like it's about 15 feet tall. I'm thinking the ones over there are at least 20 feet tall. They are up in that first level of telephone wires over there. So really big, really invasive. They spread like crazy and very much to be avoided. Once you've got them, they're almost impossible to get rid of. So please don't bring those home on purpose. Even a cut piece that's still green and thrown on the ground will root, sprout, and take hold. I'm here at the edge of a park in Allen I almost like to call invasive park because you can find all of them here. This one is bamboo. It comes from countries far to the east of us, and it is wildly invasive. Once here, these clumping bamboos tend to form very large stands. This is a single one, which makes it a little bit easier to see that classic bamboo trunk on this with the rings around each node and that long smooth inner node. The cross section is D-shaped, And the leaves kind of look grassy because it is grass. It's a really big grass.